Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's training titled AI Challenge. My name is Michelle, and I will be in the meeting for the first 15 minutes. I'm logged into this meeting as the meeting operator. If you have any issues, you can contact me by typing a message in the chat window. You can also send our team an email at support@meets4b.com. During this session, you have the ability to ask questions using the I Am window. A survey link will be shared with you in our thank you email. We would greatly appreciate if you would take a few minutes to complete our survey and provide feedback on your experience. This will help us to improve our services. Please note that this session is being recorded. And now I would like to hand over to your instructors. You have the floor.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ibrahim Hamza, and I'm in the One Commercial Partner Division here at Microsoft. And I'm really excited to be kicking off the 8-week challenge for AI today. So for today, we're going to kick off with a few topics. First, we're going to walk through all the members of our team who are going to be presenting today. I'll give us some brief instructions about how this challenge is going to work. Then we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what is the opportunity for AI globally, but also here in Australia, but most importantly, what the opportunity is for you as Microsoft partners. And then lastly, we're going to go through a few things around what it takes to make up an AI practice. Now, I'd like to go through the members of our team here today. So we've got folks from Microsoft, but also we've got folks from outside of Microsoft supporting us with the session today. So we have Glenn Morris, who's our resident subject matter expert in AI, who works very closely with Microsoft as one of our MVPs, but also runs a partner business outside of Microsoft. I'm Ibrahim Hamza. I'm the partner marketing advisor for data and AI over in OCP at Microsoft. We also have Ronnie Guha, who's one of our sales specialists who's focused on advanced analytics and cognitive services and really has deep expertise in machine learning and AI. And then we have Marnie Fulmer, who is the programs lead here at Microsoft, who actually helped make this whole thing happen today. And she specializes in our Microsoft Partner Network and MPN programs. Now, how the challenge works. So each week you're going to receive some content on a key topic and a particular action that you're going to need to complete. And this is going to be a mix of content to read, assessments to complete, or community calls for you to attend. There's also going to be additional resources that are going to be posted every week on our AI challenge page, so be sure to visit that frequently. Now, during the 8 weeks, the team is here to support you, and very soon you're going to be invited to join our Yammer community. We invite you to visit, contribute, observe, and ask any questions from our experts and from your peers who are participating in the program. Now, we hope you enjoy the challenge, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ronnie to kick off. Why don't you go ahead, Ronnie?
Thanks, Ibs, and thank you everyone for choosing to take this AI challenge. As Ibs mentioned, I'm a specialist in Microsoft, and I work with customers across various industries and help them recognize how advanced analytics capabilities like AI can deliver better outcomes for them. And those outcomes could be from an operational efficiency perspective or the ability to deliver better outcomes for their customers. So we're here today, and we're going to talk about technology, but I really want to just start by talking a bit about people and where we see AI fitting in. When I talk to my customers about AI, invariably I get asked whether technology will truly replace humans and replace their staff, and more importantly, whether it actually should. And the reality is that Microsoft's goal is to build smart systems and platforms that can augment human abilities and experiences. And this is in line with our overall mission of empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And this is something that we've already done. And we recognize that the industry knowledge is within our customer base and within our partner community. And we also recognize that the understanding of the best way to implement this is held within the market. So really what we are doing is we're providing a whole bunch of tools and capabilities across Azure and on premises to allow our partners and our customers to seamlessly and easily leverage a whole bunch of these capabilities and build an integrated solution. And we use technology to help and amplify those capabilities. So many of our great inventions and the solutions to some of our greatest problems have been the result of technology combined with human ingenuity. So in fact, historically, whenever we face new challenges, whether it's in the need to feed a growing population or the desire to cross an ocean, we've come up with new technology to help us solve that problem. And then these new innovations end up leading to more progress, and we create an ongoing cycle of innovation. And if we look back in time, there's plenty of examples of new technologies that have driven periods of unprecedented progress, even as they've created challenges of their own. So from a Microsoft perspective, we genuinely believe that artificial intelligence is the most recent example of a new technology that has the same potential to spur unprecedented progress, even though it comes with certain challenges. And as our VP, Harry Schumer, said, AI will effectively transform every business, improve every part of what we're doing, and will help us deal with some of the most fundamental challenges we face. And we think that we're just at the beginning of realizing this incredible potential. So despite all these recent progress and potential, AI is probably one of the least understood of the technologies. And that isn't surprising because it isn't something we can see or touch or even realize that you're using it. In fact, most of us are probably relying on technology that uses AI every day, even without knowing it. So if you're using the Bing search engine or building a PowerPoint presentation, you may well have access to some of the AI capabilities embedded within these tools. And so the term AI refers to a broad range of these technologies that can do things that are similar to what people can. So they can perceive images and sounds and recognize them. It can reason over large volumes of data and identify patterns. It can help with decision making by making predictions and understanding the relationship between various people, places, and things. And the coolest part is that AI can learn from all of these inputs and interactions and get better over time. And this is a huge shift in technology. We used to have to learn how to use machines and tell computers and robots what to do, but now they can learn from us and adapt to how to work best. And all of these AI advances are allowing people to develop technology that can interact with humans in natural ways. And you'll see this in things like Cortana, our intelligent assistant that recognizes your voice and responds to it, and a whole bunch of the cognitive services that we're bringing to market. So AI isn't new, and it also isn't new to Microsoft. In fact, computer scientists at Microsoft and elsewhere have been working on some of these technologies for decades. So why is it booming now? Why is it that every CIO or executive survey always says that AI and machine learning is top of mind? And I think there's probably three key factors that's driving it right now. The first is obviously the data. As more of our lives are becoming digitized, there's more data than ever available for computers to learn from. And the more information has fed into an AI system, the better it gets. So at Microsoft, there is a particular strength. We've developed graphs of information from our work with Bing and LinkedIn that has helped us develop AI tools that can better anticipate and respond to people's needs. And even from a customer's perspective, we're now seeing you're no longer reliant on the data that you create. There are these huge marketplaces and external data sources that you can connect into and augment your own data stores to have a much clearer view of your customer base or products and services that you can bring to market. Secondly, the cloud, and that's the massive compute power available in the cloud that makes storing and processing these huge amounts of data much more feasible than when they had to be done on individual computers or in-house servers. At Microsoft, our Azure cloud computing platform now spans over 42 regions around the world and provides a backbone for many customers who are developing and running some of these projects and technologies in real time. And finally, experts at Microsoft and elsewhere in the open source community and everywhere else have recently made breakthroughs in developing much better AI algorithms that can more accurately do things like recognize speech, identify images. We are using these algorithms to provide real-time translation with things like Microsoft Translator, to create better pivot tables in Excel, and even to provide plain spoken answers to queries through tools such as Power BI. So I mentioned quickly around Microsoft Graphs, And the reality is, to have great AI, you need great data. And the Microsoft Graph encompasses one of the broadest collection of data sets in the industry. It includes the world's knowledge of 2.5 billion entities in Bing and about 48 million active users of Cortana. The work knowledge we have through 500 million LinkedIn members and more than 120 million monthly commercial active users of Office 365 and Dynamics, and the insights that we've gained from our 1.5 billion Windows users. So by combining this knowledge with advanced in computer vision, speech, language, we're able to create AI-infused products and solutions that help our customers across both their personal and their professional lives. So our approach to AI is really based on 3 key pillars. It's leading innovation that extends on our partner and customer capabilities. It's building powerful platforms that make innovation faster and more accessible. And finally, it's about developing a trusted approach so that AI is developed and deployed in a responsible manner. So going into them in a little bit more detail, when we add AI capabilities to products such as Office or Bing, or release new products and solutions, they're often rooted in discoveries from Microsoft's research labs. And for over 25 years, our research labs have published something like 22,000 papers on a whole range of topics, from quantum computing to cloud security. And recently, we've doubled down on our commitment to AI, and we've set up a separate AI and research team, a global team with 8,000 data scientists and researchers and engineers, and they feed into our product set, but also in a whole bunch of tools and services that we're bringing to the market. And it's this AI group that has made some of the most industry-leading advances in various disciplines like image recognition, speech recognition, machine reading, comprehension, etc. So, for example, with vision, we've incorporated our advances in image recognition into the Seeing AI app, which helps humans or helps people who are blind or with low vision do things like recognize currency or get a description of people around them, and to be able to live life to their fullest. When we talk about language, the work we're doing around deep learning for better speech translation, allowing people from 2 different countries to communicate across language barriers. We see that in real time through something like Translator, where you can speak in one language and the person at the other end hears it in their tongue, and vice versa. When we talk about machine reading, our work in understanding, which uses AI to read, answer, and even ask questions, is being incorporated into our bot framework and in providing people with more plain-spoken answers to search questions. And finally, the knowledge realm, where in some cases we're combining several of these core AI skills together with the knowledge we've gathered from rich data sources. And that combination of skills and information is what makes products such as our intelligent assistant so useful to people. And that's embedded through not just APIs, but also directly through things like Windows 10 with the Cortana integration. Now, when it comes to the platform, to make AI accessible to everyone, we've created a collection of APIs and a whole bunch of other tools that developers, customers, and data scientists can use to very simply and effectively and efficiently build solutions. And obviously, from infrastructure perspective, we provided a variety of these tools and services backed by the best-of-breed infrastructure and enterprise-grade security, availability, compliance, meeting all of the security requirements, even here in Australia with some of the certifications that we've achieved. And we make this available for all developers and data scientists to build and deploy AI-infused applications. So developers can harness the power of Azure's infinite scale infrastructure and use integrated services to incorporate AI on their data platforms and leveraging tools like Data Lake and Cosmos DB. And Microsoft's now also incorporating reprogrammable computer chips like called Field Programmable Gateway Arrays, FPGAs, into Azure as part of our long-term effort to effectively build an AI supercomputer in the cloud. From a services point of view, think of these as the building blocks of AI. We have the most comprehensive set of AI services, and these are available as REST APIs, so they can be plugged into existing apps, existing products, existing solutions that are already available. And with more than 750,000 developers from 60 countries who are already using cognitive services to building apps. This vast repository is only getting bigger and better. And finally, we provide developers with a rich set of development tools to simplify the whole development lifecycle with things such as Visual Studio Code tools for AI. And we're also making available the Microsoft Cognitive Toolkit, which is used across Microsoft to achieve breakthroughs in AI. And it's freely available to our partners and the community via an open source license. And finally, I guess from a AI perspective, we said at the beginning that every big technological advance has brought with it many opportunities and challenges. And as AI systems get more sophisticated and start to play a larger role in people's lives, it's imperative for companies like us and our partners to develop and adopt clear principles that guide the people building, using, and applying these systems. In fact, our CEO, Satya, was one of the first major industry leaders to publicly put forward a set of universal principles to be considered for AI design and development a few years ago. And among other things, these principles ensure that AI systems are fair, they're reliable, and they're safe, and they're private and secure, they're inclusive, transparent. And to achieve this, the people designing AI systems should reflect the diversity of the world that we live in. And organizations such as the Partnership on AI, which we helped create a few years ago, is going to be critical in advancing these discussions. And the Partnership on AI is a nonprofit organization that includes a whole bunch of other tech companies, academia, nonprofit organizations, and it's established to effectively study, formulate, and share best practice on AI. And I think, our vision as we try and articulate is to ultimately the question is not what computers can do, but it's really what computers should do. So we're optimistic about the future of AI, and I think AI advances will solve a whole bunch of the challenges that we face today. And our approach to AI is grounded in our overall company mission, but it's also about empowering all of our partner community and all of our customers to be able to leverage a whole bunch of these technologies and capabilities to effectively provide a better outcome for people around the world. So that's really from a Microsoft perspective, and what we see this huge potential in AI, and you would have seen this in the last couple of years with a whole bunch of announcements that we've made and investments that we've made and organizations that we work with in the opportunity that we see in this market. And really part of this challenge is to ensure that our partners are aware of it and they have an ability to take some of these platforms and these capabilities and these tools that we're bringing to market, and for you to be able to take it to your customers with solutions that change the way they do their business. And I think what we're seeing in Australia specifically is this demand for AI is growing rapidly. And there's a whole bunch of research, and I know Gartner released Forrester released a paper a couple of months ago, just specifically in the Australian market, about how across every industry there are organizations that are leveraging AI to deliver better outcomes, whether it be from operational efficiency to save money, or to provide better services, or to improve their products. So there is people already on the bleeding edge using some of these technologies, and our job is to go to the rest of the industry and ensure everybody takes advantage of this. And there's some of these stats out there which talk about how in the next 10 years, AI will power 95% of all customer interactions, and all of the interactions that we have with organizations will be through automated channels. They expect that the market for AI services and products is going to grow to almost $70 billion in the next couple of years. And almost 50% of all the apps will incorporate AI over the next few years. So that is an incredible volume and a market that we can tap into. We're seeing this huge growth in things like chatbot technologies, and we've got so many customers who are now using chatbots as a way to allow both their staff and their customers interact with complex documents, find information easier, and to provide a more real-time connectivity with their users. And what we're seeing is that over the next few years, they expect bots to power 85% of customer interactions. And we've seen customers use a lot of this internally to provide answers to questions to the staff internally. And what's a challenge and is really the opportunity for us is the fact that 66% of companies believe that they don't have the technical skills internally to adopt AI. And that's where we can play such a big part in helping taking some of these problems and help them develop solutions and take it with our customers, take it to market. So in Australia, we effectively see three key use cases or scenarios where we believe we can make a big impact. The first is to modernize applications with AI. Second is to transform existing processes. And the final is to allow customers to interact with their customers in more natural ways. And really, if we look at a consistent theme across all of this, it's about taking the information and the data that these organizations already have, looking at the business processes that they currently use, and seeing how it can be transformed digitally and how we can use AI to either simplify it, operationalize it, or improve on it. And so if we look at modernization of applications, it's taking, building data-driven applications that have AI embedded through it. So so it can augment some of the work that's already being done by these systems. If we look at transforming business processes, how can we allow our customers to allow their staff to do more? How can we use AI to help them focus on the areas that they need to focus on and let technology answer the questions or deal with the processes that can be automated? And finally, probably the biggest part is around this whole ability to engage with customers naturally. So how can our customers reach out to their customers and their partners and interact in a more natural way, answer questions easily, and provide a unified channel, unified conversation, irrespective of the channel that the customer comes from, whether it be bots, whether it be the call center, whether it be a face-to-face interaction, an email, whatever that might be. So how do you provide a consistent experience across all of those, and how do you gather the information from these interactions and ensure you can reduce churn, you can on-sell and upsell, and you can add more value to your customers? So I guess from a Microsoft perspective, the aim of my session today was really to give you a bit of an insight into our focus on AI, the investments that we're making, and you can obviously see in the key areas around the infrastructure, around Azure, around some of the services and the tools and the products, the range and the capabilities that we're bringing to market. But then also to give you this bit of an insight into the types of solutions that you can take to market, which then gets you thinking about the types of customers who you might want to position it with. And over the next few weeks, we'll go much deeper into the technology and give you some real examples on how some of these technologies and capabilities might work and how they might work for your customers. So now I'll hand over to Glenn, who's going to run you through a bit more of the artificial intelligence stack.
Okay, thanks, Ronnie. Thanks very much. Appreciate that. As Ronnie mentioned, my name is Glenn Morris, and my role over the next few weeks will really to be taking you through things from the technical perspective. And what I want to do is make sure that you have an awareness around all the tools, that you have an awareness around the stack, and that you understand how to implement a lot of what Ronnie has just said. So while you might hear over the next 10 to 15 minutes some repetitiveness, my take is very much from the technical side and slowly introducing you to the products, the pillars, and therefore the stack that you can use going forward. So there's going to be an element of repetitiveness, but understand that what we're trying to do is essentially make sure that you become familiar with the products, become comfortable with the product stack, and find yourself in a position to make intelligent decisions about how you're going to use the stack. The first thing, I guess, to realize around AI is that what's happening here is not really new. And to go back to what Ronnie said around the fact that we now have loads of data. We have loads of compute power. We have powerful algorithms. We essentially have the framework to go forward and embrace artificial intelligence on a level that we've never had before. You only have to look back a few years and consider the fact that, it's not that long ago we had in Microsoft Word a little animated paperclip called Clippy, who used to provide us with some guidance, would ask us, is there anything wrong, would simply say to us, How can Clippy help? And we could obviously interchange him for other animated little characters. But what we were starting to see way back then was the beginnings of what is becoming more and more mainstream for us. The reality is that we pretty much use artificial intelligence all the time. We, A, don't realize we're doing it, and B, we fall into this strange sort of category somewhere between digital natives and digital immigrants. And on one hand, we might kind of look at it as unusual, but on the other hand, we just sort of grab it and run with it, saying this is just the way things are. So going even way back beyond Clippy, if you go back way into the 40s and 50s, you will find that scientists and analysts and statisticians way back then were working on what were the beginnings of artificial intelligence as we know it. So what I want to do is essentially just introduce you initially to the stack. I want to introduce it to you as well in the context of a customer type scenario. I was fortunate enough a few years back to have a customer approach me and say to me, we're thinking of implementing Power BI. What we did in 2014 around Power BI became a technology adoption program. It became one of Microsoft's showcase stories, and has subsequently grown into an environment where, along with this particular customer, we have products in the market that are consumed by their customers, and obviously their customers pay a fee for it. Some of that is hosted by my company, some of that is hosted by the customer themselves. So the context I try to use is the fact that this is possible for everyone. I've been using the data mining tools since they appeared in SQL Server 2005. So I've grown with the algorithm stack, for lack of a better word. But really, it's now way beyond that. It's about services and about capabilities, about cloud. It's about amazing amounts of compute power. It's about amazing algorithms, and obviously the amount of data that we have at our disposal. Now, when we start to talk to this, it goes back to Ronnie's slide that introduced us to the services, the infrastructure, and the tools. So what we should start to see this is essentially 3 high-order services that we can leverage to begin building out our artificial intelligence solutions. Along with thinking about building artificial intelligence solutions, we have to also look at it from the context of what can I do that is different to what anyone else is doing? So how do I see some intellectual property here? How do I see something that I can wrap and make available as a service? Okay. The collection is really, really powerful, but what it has is some roots. And those roots go back to what we term systems of engagement and systems of record. Now, when we look at systems of engagement, we're really just looking at the fact that we all use the web, we all carry mobile phones, we're all fond of using chat apps, whether it's Skype or some other app, and we're all generating data. If we then look at things like systems of record, we tend to look back at our ERP systems, our CRM systems, O365, D365, and that understanding that we have loads and loads of historical data, we are every day creating more and more data. And then how do we turn this into a system of intelligence? How do we essentially start to use the data that we are harvesting from these different places and different endpoints and turn it into something that we can use intelligently, not only in our own context as partners, but also in the context of our customers? And then how can we turn this into something that becomes useful for a customer, or for that matter, for the purposes of us as partners? So going forward, let me break down the services initially for you. So we break our services down into custom AI, pre-built AI, and conversational AI. Now, custom AI encompasses Azure machine learning. Now, I know most of you will probably have heard of Azure machine learning. If you're working in the cloud, it's quite likely you're aware of machine learning tools. And really, this now gives us the ability to take data run it through a bunch of really powerful tried and tested algorithms in order to give us an environment that becomes predictive. If you go to Wikipedia, Wikipedia will tell you that AI is defined as intelligence exhibited by machines that mimic functions associated with human minds. I would argue that that is entirely true, but they probably do it with fewer errors. What we're therefore trying to do in this case is ultimately create a workflow of intelligence. That intelligence is already bottled for us. We have the ability to set properties, to set features, to set variables, and then take this bottled brain, run our data through it, and say to it, what do you predict from the information that we give you? It's not a simple case of what do you predict. There is an element of evaluating, of training, of coming up with a fit that we believe is a predictive number that is comfortable from a business point of view. And then using this capability to continuously predict, to model, and give us forecast type information. The next one is the pre-built AI. And this is obviously a set of services, cognitive services in this case, that is already set up and hosted for us. And what we're essentially doing is tapping into the service and using its intelligence. The third, conversational AI, is something that Ronnie alluded to as well, and that was using bot frameworks, chatbots, the ability to put in play a mechanism that gives us instant gratification, instant answers to problems that we potentially have without having to wait for our support ticket to be raised, etc., etc. So I will be over the weeks talking you through these particular services in more depth, showing you how you can start to begin to build your own services, your own IP that can then be used in the context of your own business or customer businesses. The next is infrastructure. Now, infrastructure alludes to artificial intelligence on data. So once again, what you're seeing is Azure Cosmos DB, Azure Data Lake, SQL Server. We could go into other places and other database types, but really it's about using this powerful and best of breed infrastructure that's already been set up, ready to go, harvesting your data, working on your data, and making it available for intelligent analysis. AI on compute looks at things like Spark, Batch, ACS, the data science virtual machine. And then we have under all of this, the facilities that Azure gives us around CPUs, GPUs, FGPA. Right? Ronnie alluded to FGPA and the power that it gives us in the deep learning space. Okay. Besides that, its performance, its flexibility, its scalability. Okay. So it's that sweet spot somewhere between a CPU and a GPU, right? And I think you'll be learning more and more about FGPA as we move forward through the program. On the tool side, it's about the coding and management. It's also about the various deep learning frameworks like Cognitive Toolkit. But in terms of coding and management, Visual Studio Tools, Azure Machine Learning Studio, and another product called Azure Machine Learning Workbench. These are all the tools that I'm going to make you guys familiar with and get you working with. I know that many of you may be sitting there going, you know, it's one of those things, as Ronnie said, that is least understood, and therefore the tooling, the services, the infrastructure as a result is also on some levels not as well understood. My goal and my role over the next little period is essentially to get you to a place where you believe you are comfortable with the tools, that you can go forward and get yourself into a position to build out an AI practice. This comes in various layers. It's not really just about infrastructure, tools, and services. There's a management piece that has to be put around this and various other little bits that will fit nicely into the models that you'll be building in the future. So just to give you a little more context, like I said, along with another partner that is based in the same area as I am, that weirdly enough has the same company acronym as mine does. I became the technical consultant on a particular project that was run by the other company, and we started initially just building out a Power BI environment for this particular customer. What we then did was essentially realize, after looking at the Power BI, that there was potential to do some forecasting. There was potential to look at some of the data and actually make some predictions. Given that they're in the insurance industry, little things like tweaking a product, tweaking a capability, offering a potential customer something that's a little different in North Queensland to something that's a little different in, say, Northern New South Wales, became an important component. But then how do we essentially determine what those offerings should be? Whether it's because of weather patterns, whether it's because of the nature of the traditional business in those areas. What we started to do ultimately, once we had the Power BI piece in place, was look at how we could use the data more intelligently, and started to look at how we could turn the data into products, and then turn the data into something that gave us the ability to forecast, to predict. And this became ultimately a small business that sits besides the initial business that was put together for this customer. So when we see this in context, you'll start to realize that the process of how we get there is somewhat organic in many ways. It's not a case of I'm going to get into AI and therefore I need X, Y, and Z. It's a case of look at your existing customers. Look at what we can do in order to leverage their data in different ways. Look at how we can leverage our own data in different ways. Interpret their data a little bit differently, maybe in real time, maybe historically, that will give us the ability to predict going forward. It might be something they're doing in the OCR space, in the text space, in the video space. It's really about that, removing barriers and looking at capabilities and how we can make our customers thrive while making our own businesses thrive. So if we are going to build a practice, what are the things that we have to consider in order to do this? Now, the question here was the ideal partner to build an AI practice. And I thought this through, and I thought, well, ultimately it comes down to wanting to, right? So in terms of the motivation that I have listed here, it's really, as partners, wanting to learn, understanding that there is a learning curve, okay, joining programs like the program we're presenting to you right now, and essentially stepping onto a pathway that takes you to artificial intelligence. So there needs to be a motivation to do this. Separation, this is something that as part of the motivation you start to think about. And that's the piece around what is it that I'm doing differently? What can I do differently? How can I build something for a customer? How can I build something for myself? So for instance, if you run a country, to go back to if you run a company, to go back to Ronnie's example, and you're finding that you waste a whole heap of time every day on tickets, support tickets where people are asking questions that can be answered from a back-end knowledge base, from an existing library of information, then potentially here we have a chatbot that could do that for you. So that immediately gives you something that you can bottle and essentially take to a customer and go, I'm sure you're dealing with the same issues. Here's something that once wired into your system gives you the ability to ultimately drop tickets that are simply asking things from the global knowledge base every single day. And then the dedication. You need to be prepared to go all the way. You want to redefine what's possible. You want to ultimately move into a space that is valuable to your business, to your customer's business, and importantly, valuable across the board in the context of artificial intelligence. So with that, we'll leave it to any questions. Please understand that the program is only just beginning, and I'm sure that You will have questions. I'm sure that there'll be things you need to chew on, but feel free to initially put it out there, ask your questions. We also have the capability to ask questions on Yammer. So if you feel that you need a little bit of time to chew before you ask some questions, then certainly go ahead and do that. But if there's anything you need right now, please just let us know.
Glenn, there's a question right now from Nick. Will there be labs or tutorials to experience the tools during our 8-week challenge?
Well, Nick, we'll be pretty much, besides the stuff that I'll be showing you, we'll also be introducing you to some content, which includes labs and tutorials that is already out there, in most cases in the public domain, that you can have access to. And once again, this will come through in the emails as we send them to you. One of the things that I just wanted to make sure of, to be open with you, is in many cases with the stuff that's hosted up on GitHub, I tend to sort of go in every couple of weeks and just make sure that it still aligns with the environments. And I'm not saying that you can't just go there and get it yourself, but I really just wanted to be in a position so that when you attempt a lab and you go, this doesn't look like it looks in the image on GitHub, or this doesn't feel like it's supposed to feel over there, that I could actually be available to you in order to give you some guidance. I just didn't want to put people in the position where they start to play with tools, and because it's a month old and the button that was in the top right-hand corner is now in the bottom left corner, I wanted to be able to essentially be able to be a little proactive about how we get guidance and information to you. So there will be content. There will be content that has labs. There will be opportunities to watch me do things, and there will be opportunities to essentially play with the services.
Okay, we've got another one in here. The screen just moved. In your view, what would be the top verticals/industries for AI in the next 2 to 3 years? That's for Ronnie or for Glenn.
I can answer part of it, Glenn, and then you can come in. I think we're currently seeing a lot of use within AI for retail, finance, public sector, and they're probably the 3 key ones. The ones where there is increasing is utilities and mining. As I mentioned during my talk, there is a Forrester research that talks about the various industries and the level of investment that they're making in AI, and pretty much across the board in every industry there is investments being made by organizations, just some more than the others. But the key ones right now would be public sector, retail, finance, as the guiding lights, and then a few other industries following soon after.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, basically of the customers that I've been working with over the past couple of years in this space, the tendency is to be in the finance and insurance sector in my case. So I'm basically saying that the bulk of my customers seem to come from a particular vertical. So yeah, just in addition to what Ronnie just said.
Okay, the next question I have from Kieran is, how many of the AI tools and services are GA, so generally available, in Australia?
It's a sliding scale, so there is capabilities around Azure Machine Learning V1 that's currently GA. I think a lot of the V2 capabilities is currently in preview. There's a collection of the cognitive services, Lewis, and the bot framework, part of which is GA, and part of them are still in preview. So there is a healthy mix between what's currently available in GA that you can build solutions for your customers on using with SLAs in the back end, and some that are still being in preview, being developed. If there's a particular solution area that you're interested in, I can go through that in a bit more detail, and we can take this offline if you want. You can connect with me through Yammer.
Okay, the next question, I'm just scrolling down, from James. What, if any, of this can be used for federal government in regards to AI?
Sure. So look, right now we have publicly available customer case studies with federal government agencies here in Australia. So it is already in use, and they are using tools such as Lewis, the bot framework. One of the other things to be aware of is our solution stack also includes things like R and Python, which can be run on premises within your SQL environment as well. So we have customers who are using a combination of the two. So it doesn't require everything to be running in Azure. We've also got announcements around AU Central and some of the capabilities in there. And once that's launched and its connectivity into the ICON network, gives federal government a whole bunch more ability to be able to run these Azure services in a much more protected environment.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it also depends on the nature of the project. So I'm doing some things with a couple of local councils where it's identifying fauna and flora. Now it's very much in the early stages, and ultimately it's felt that the data itself, does not necessarily have to be local. So it comes to the nature of the project. As with a particular mapping of koalas in a particular area of South Brisbane, same sort of thing, where it's generally felt that the services provide what the council needs, and therefore, there's not that concern, I think, that you're pointing to here with where is the data stored, etc., etc.
Okay, I don't think there's any more questions, Glenn. Unless there is any more questions. Hang on. Oh, we've got another one. How do you define ROI for AI investments to customers? What factors do you usually consider? I think that's something that we're covering in a future session, but I'll let you answer, Glenn.
Ultimately, this comes to take the customer context that I used. Here's a sort of perfect example of a whole lot of processes that they went through on a regular basis in order to find something that could then be used by their various agencies that is now essentially automated. So in terms of return on investment, the investment ultimately was minimal, right? Their biggest expense was probably the consulting piece. And we've essentially built it into an automated environment, which costs the price of the compute to run. So ultimately, the return on investment in the initial half year was probably not that good, but subsequently, it's really dependent on what you're building, the challenge that you're attempting to meet, and what it essentially costs you. To go back to Ronnie's example of creating a chatbot that essentially deals with, say, for instance, a third of all service calls every day that's connected to Azure Search or to a back-end global knowledge base, that suddenly becomes the environment that people get automated answers from, rather than having to raise a ticket, go through the process, the support process, in order to get something that was already available. It's really, it's immeasurable over time what the return of investment is there, because obviously initially when you build that out, there's an element of spend, but once it's up and running and keeps running, really what companies tend to do is forget that it ever cost them anything. So while it's kind of horses for courses, I think that, as Marnie said, it is one of those things that there are numbers for, but it is one of those things that we'll also see the numbers for in a future session.
Glenn, I think that's it. I don't think we have any more questions. Everyone's being a bit quiet today, but I'm sure they'll be a bit more lively in future ones. Oh, hang on, we've got another one from Kieran. How many partners in Australia are able to now monetize AI?
One that I know of.
Yeah, Glenn, you've got a business, yeah?
Yeah, it's
We do have a number of partners who've already made investments in this area. Obviously, Microsoft's been investing a lot in this over the last 3 or 4 years, and we've had a few partners who have been involved in that journey with us so far. But I think what we're seeing is that the market opportunity is so vast that we need a whole bunch more partners who have these deep relationships with their customers to come on board. And I think that's really the aim of this challenge, is to increase the number of partners we have available in the market with these capabilities.
I agree with that, and that's why I wanted to sort of put that customer context in place, because in many cases this will come from existing customers and customers that you currently have a relationship with, that you are able to essentially do some analysis, present some options, or even have them come and talk to you, given that you now have a relationship. I think that the process of having an involvement, having a relationship, makes the process of presenting artificial intelligence or solutions based on the artificial intelligence stack way easier than it would in that kind of cold call type environment.
Okay, Glenn, I think we might wrap. I think there's one more slide left.
Okay. So guys, what's next? So in week 2, licensing 101 and MPN programs available for building an AI practice. And then on the next community call on the 23rd of March, I will be talking to and discussing becoming an AI technical master. So this is when we'll look at the content that's out there, how we can use it, and how we can essentially build an environment that allows everybody to start looking at artificial intelligence, not only from a technical perspective, but from a building out a practice perspective as well. Okay, so if not before, I look forward to chatting to you guys then. Like I said, please use the Yammer group in order to make contact and reach out if you have any questions. Appreciate everyone coming online, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.